So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the second tabernacle services, where we find the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Hamashiach laid waste from many centuries. As we read it in Yeshayahu the prophet, it's always important having the understanding of the prophecies via then what then the Shaliach Shaul has said. And obviously the Hamashiach ben Yosef was always reading the instructions and also reading the prophets, because the Hamashiach ben Yosef was involved in a Teshuva extremely important for his time, and also the people that were so far away from the holy instructions for so long during the Second Temple period. Then the Hamashiach ben Yosef was explaining the coming of the holy presence of Yah or Yahweh. Now, a lot of these understandings, they are related with the understanding of Teshuva as then the restoration of tabernacling, and also later on then the temple. Now, truly it is imperative learning sections of Galah or Revelation. So then Daniel and then Ezekiel then can be also traced. So then the understanding of the prophecies obviously can be lined up, because during these days people are more concerned in storing and harboring knowledge for the purposes of control, rather than explaining the true prophecies from a scripture that was never meant be in the hands of those people who are trying to control. So then Yod-Heh-Vav He is very explicit when he explains as far as what the prophet was talking of this particular situation. We find then the prophecy related with Daniel was mostly regarding the kingdom of the Gentiles. Now he knew that the kingdom of Gentiles, some of them was going to come, some of them was gone. Then during the time of the restoration period comes then tabernacling, and its importance of Teshuvah. Now the Hebrew text is very important, because Shaliach Shaul made mention of his writings related with the understanding of the prophecies. That's why then Shaliach Shaul mentioned, not because people would prophesy, but people would understand the prophecies, spending time studying the prophecies. Shaliach Shaul never mentioned of people having gifts of prophecy. However, he did mention understanding the prophecies. So then there is a huge distinction from people who are trying to control the knowledge versus those who are enlightened via the Spirit and understanding and bringing the people to a Teshuvah mode. Now, during this time, this world that is going through so many changes and so many transitions, it is quite obvious And when people understand the holy instructions for what they are, and this is what Shaliach Shaul has said. In Romans chapter 8, Shaliach Shaul is very clear. He mentioned regarding the original manuscripts based from the understanding primarily of the Hamashiach ben Yosef, and then the renewing of the mind. Now then, it's quite sometimes hard of explaining through bare facts, because people are so entangled in traditions, they are so entangled in their own ways of doing what they should be doing, in their own thinking. However, Shaliach Shaul, he has said very plainly that people should renew their minds with the original manuscripts. Now then, in Romans 8 explains very precisely the layer related with the renewing of the mind. Now then, these situations are not only studying, but yet is understanding the content and having obviously a relationship with Yod-He Vav-He via Teshuva of his original manuscripts. That's why then when Shaliach Shaul mentioned regarding these particular understandings, he's making a reference of many kinds of situations, and mostly related with the lining up of the prophecies. Now then, people were handed over so many traditions, and then from these particular people that were involved in such a huge transition, later on they became people who changed the times and the seasons. Now then, as far as what Shaliach Shaul has said, situations and circumstances, while he was explaining the layer related with Moses, there are many topics that Shaliach Shaul mentioned, and we know that he knew the functions of Yod-He Vav-He or Yahweh. He knew that Galah, the revelation of these particular sections, would require a very strong understanding of the prophecies. So then he mentioned, and therefore, my brothers, via the understanding of Elohim, obviously translations must have a reference of what function he's speaking of, what's the content. That you present in your bodies and present yourselves worthy. So then, Teshuva speaks of the transformation or the renewal of the mind. Now, the New Testament didn't exist during this time. That's the whole situation. What did exist was the scripture of Yah, the Torah of Yah. And that's why Yah or Yahweh, Galah, when he gave his holy instructions, these were for the people so then they would obey and maintain a very close relationship with the divine. So then, since the New Testament did not exist during the time of Romans, the main question is, what kind of a scripture were they using? Second situation, would those people able to improve what was taught by the prophets? And also the Shilishim, when they were sent, and those people who were hearing, were they able to change and improve what then the prophets and the Spirit of Yah did? The answer is absolutely not. Because the Teshuva requires the understanding of the original language. That's why then Shaliach Shaul has said, you must renew your mind. Transformed by the renewal of your minds. Now the renewal of the mind can be only done via the scripture. Now there are many translations that people think they can improve themselves, and during these times we find most nations are bankrupt because these people have done so wickedly for so long, in so much of destroying their own systems. So then Teshuvah not only must be used for the purposes of understanding the holy instructions, and also the lining up of the kingdoms of the Gentiles. So there are a couple of situations where then human beings, they have a tendency of trying to control circumstances where then they cannot. But people always try. So then, Shaliach Shaul was also defending the faith, as we were reading from the scripture related with Shaul. And then later on, people truly tried to do on their own. Now there are scores and scores of examples, but there were people that are trying to imitate him. In other words, they're trying to use his knowledge without having the knowledge of their own. And the situations, they did not turn out as in a regular situation. Now then, as far as the sons of Siva, we found very important situation, because what Shaliach Shaul was explaining was the holy presence of Yod-Heh Vav-Heh. Now the world of today is absolutely mixed with many kinds of situations related with the spiritual content they have made up on their own. Now Teshuvah is the exercising of the holy instructions. This is what it means, and it takes time. Now as people then read these instructions, the first point is understanding the prophecies. So then no person can manipulate the outcome of these particular principles. So the next time I'm going to evaluate more regarding Teshuva and the work of the prophets. So please stay tuned, much more coming up.